This is the plaintiff, Stanley Sims Sr. He says he hired the defendant to design a logo and website for his nonprofit organization that empowers minorities to work together. The defendant got in over his head. He never received what he paid for, and this guy has a lot of talk in him and no walk. He's suing for the $2,716.72 he's owed. This is the defendant, Brian. He says he doesn't owe the plaintiff anything because he designed his logo but had trouble moving forward with the website because the plaintiff never provided him with written approval. He thinks the guy's technologically challenged and he's sorry, but he deserves every penny he was paid. He's accused of not getting it done. The defendant has filed a countersuit for $1,250 for the balance owed on the contract.
All parties, please raise your right hand. The People's Court is now in session. The Honorable Judge Marilyn Milian presiding. Litigants have been sworn, Your Honor.
Thank you, Douglas.
You're welcome.
Okay, Mr. Sims, you are Executive Director of Helping Entrepreneurs Leverage Prosperity, otherwise known as HELP, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me what your organization does.
I am deliciously proud. We founded this organization called HELP, helping communities of color navigate through this pandemic, also through a lot of social issues. It was very paramount for me to develop a website because working with the family of the George Floyd, Trayvon Martin, so many of our social justice issues, I needed a website in order to get our message out there. And the defendant is right. I am technology challenged. I contacted him in February of 1st, explained my situation to him. Your Honor, this gentleman is quite talented. It's just get him to do what he talk about was just something I was not successful in doing.
Now you met him. You met with him, and you for $1,250. That was the deposit, right?
Yes, ma'am.
He was going to create a logo, create a website, and do business cards. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am. He told me the $2,500. Told me about his system. During that conversation, I reiterated. I said, now, you know I'm not technology smart. My kids have to help me put contacts in my iPhone.
Well, contacts in your iPhone. I thought he was going to say in his eyes. So, I get that. But if it weren't for folks who aren't technology savvy, there wouldn't be a job for the defendant. So I presume that is a happy effect. I'm looking for a contract. Is there a written contract or an email that encapsulates what the business proposition between you guys was?
Yes, Your Honor. There is a contract that was submitted to evidence.
Yeah. And what that is supposed to include is what I'm seeing here, correct?
That's
yes,
correct.
ma'am.
Okay. So
That's
what
correct.
went wrong, Mr. Sims?
What went wrong is once he got my money, it was hard to get in touch with him to get a product.
Okay.
Finally, after several months, he sent me the sample, which is in there, He kept, Mr. Brian has a good heart. He works in our community. He said he had some issues with his children. I kept taking the excuses, but then I kept seeing other people weren't getting done. I even went to an event that Mr. Brian does every Wednesday here, to ask him, hey, where am I on the list? These are the type strategies I have to do in order to get an answer from him. Not that it's a truthful one, Your Honor. This guy, if he opens his mouth, you need to look inside to see if his tongue is notarized because he does not tell you the truth. And so I went out that if you're looking your evidence, you'll see a Zoom meeting that we had there in September.
Okay. When did you give him the money? When did you give him the deposit?
In April. I gave him the $1,250 and I had paid him for everything he needed to produce, not just the cards, because Your Honor.
Right, but you have to pick the logo before you can do that. Did you pick a logo?
After his staff finally sent me a draft. I gave them the feedback, and I never heard anything else from them. Never seen any more work product.
What was the feedback you gave him?
If you look at those logos, none of those had an urban or a social justice feel to them. I told him maybe try a black fist or something that's the feedback that I got.
Did you ever see logos? You never saw logos with the black fist?
Your Honor, the only work product I received from the defendant is those samples, which I rejected
without
once I got
the fist.
Right. None had the urban feel.
All right. So, Mr. Bryan, hold on, Mr. Sims, hold on. Mr. Bryan, what is your response to what he just said?
What he said is very untrue. And first, I would like to also clarify that Mr. Sims paid a deposit on April 19th. He also signed the contract and agreed to the payment terms and schedule, which required that he made payments every 2 weeks after executing the contract, which he failed to do. The only payment that we received was his deposit.
Okay.
We also sent
So,
reminders.
Mr. Sims, he's correct. I see in the contract that there's a deposit, and then every 2 weeks you're supposed to be paying $300. And the reason you didn't is what?
The reason I didn't, Your Honor, is because he wasn't staying online with the contract, with the work production. And then also, Your Honor, I sent you iMessages where he was getting flippant with me, with saying, well, I'll just charge you $400 for the 3 samples. And also, Your Honor, let me also show that
I'm trying to understand something. There is an email to you on June 7th with revised logos with the fist.
Right, Your Honor. When he sent this to me, he knew
you never
it wasn't
saw this,
right.
though, because I asked you if you ever saw anything with fists, and your answer was no. You never saw what I'm looking at. And this is an email that was sent to you in June. So this isn't a matter of being technologically not super savvy. This is a matter of not reading your emails.
Well, Your Honor, let me explain something. Mm-hmm. I saw these logos from the conference that we had with his staff and gave him feedback.
When did you have the conference with the staff? Might you know, Mr. Bryan, when that was?
I believe so. To give you a more accurate timeline, Mr. Sims made his payment on April 17th, and on April 19th, he executed the contract, thus agreeing to the terms. Then following day, I sent him an email to kick off his project. I sent him a meeting link to schedule a time to meet with us. That is also submitted in evidence. And Mr. Sims
did he
respond
respond to your meeting link?
He did not.
Yes, I did, Your Honor.
How did you respond? Hold on one second. How did you respond to the meeting link, Mr. Sims?
Your Honor, like I said, he has it where you have to go into the software. I called Brian.
No, you don't have to go into the software. All you have to do is click on it, and then it gives you some available dates. But he doesn't work that way.
Honor,
he's old school, and you knew he was old school, Mr. Bryan. So he picks up the phone and calls you. And then what happens, Mr. Bryan?
And he told me that he was technology challenged, and I said, okay, I'll work with you as best as I can. Okay. And so I scheduled a time to meet with him on April 28th in person.
Okay.
Mr. Sims claimed that we didn't have contact for several months. We met. I emailed him the next day, and we met the following week.
Is that accurate, Mr. Sims?
Ma'am.
Yes or no? Is it accurate?
No, ma'am.
You never met with him on April 28th?
I met with him. That's the day I called Brian.
All right. Mr. Bryan, go on. What happened after April 28th so I can figure out where things went wrong here?
Listen, after we met on April 28th, I connected Mr. Sims with our graphic designer because I, as a CEO, don't design every project. He spoke with the graphic designer. He submitted a form for logo consultation, which is also submitted in evidence. The same day, I helped him go through it. And in it, he specified his preferences as far as the colors, the shapes, the text, and the objects.
Okay. So now you guys do a logo. The first logo that you email him goes out when?
It goes out on May 19th.
Okay. He doesn't like those. He feels like he wants a more urban feel. He responds to you, but he doesn't do the responses in writing. He calls and says those things, correct or no?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. And then your graphics people work on it again, and they send him a logo on June 7th, a couple of weeks later, correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
He never sees that, or he never responds to it?
He does not respond to it.
Now, according to him, It wasn't until after that that you had another meeting and that he sees the fists for the first time. Do you know when that meeting was? It would be a date after June 7th.
We did not have another meeting after that.
Okay.
Our designer texted him 3 logo options, technically 4, on
When
June
did your
10th.
designer text the logos?
June 10th. And on June 15th, Mr. Sims requested a phone call via text message.
And then
Because he never called me.
Hold on. I
He
know,
never
Mr.
called
Sims,
me.
because you want to do things the old way and they want to do things the new way. They don't want to do things through phone calls because then it becomes he said, he said. They want to do things in writing. Please give me a call when you can. And then you say, I will call you tomorrow. But then do you call him tomorrow? Or
No, I called him, and it was then that he had expressed to me that he was leaning toward logo B, and I requested that he send me written approval so that we can move forward.
Yeah. Now, did he? Right. See, that's why they want it in writing, because you shake your head when he says he did something, and he shakes his head when you say, I said something on the phone. That's why things have to be in email or text so that there are no problems. So in any
Your Honor,
event,
may I
you
say something?
no, hold on. What communication do you two have that I can see in proof in writing between August 12th and September 2nd? There was supposed to be a meeting on September 2nd. Is that correct, Mr. Bryan?
My assistant had contacted Mr. Sims to schedule a meeting with him because I was sick the month prior, and we had a couple COVID cases internally. So that was my soonest availability.
Right.
And she scheduled the meeting with him on September 2nd. On that day, Mr. Sims sent me a message at 6 in the morning asking me to give him a call. And it was too early. I was getting my kids ready for school. And I said, why do you need to reschedule? And he replied, yes.
Is that accurate, Mr. Sims?
He canceled.
Okay.
And I said, okay, because I'm slammed too. But
Okay,
then,
let's see
Your
the
Honor,
text so we can see who's closer to the truth here. I see the please give me a call at 6:49.
And if you scroll down, you'll see the rest of the email thread.
You say, good morning. Okay, do you need to reschedule? And he says, yes. That's you rescheduling.
Right, Your Honor, because he told me about the situation.
Okay, what would be a better day? No, but that's you. But that's not true. I'm looking at it. You're calling him. He says, what do you need? Do you need to reschedule? You say yes. He says, okay, what's a better day for you? See, that doesn't sound like somebody who's not doing their
But
job.
Your Honor, look, I'm trying to work with him.
You're trying to work with him. It
But-
sounds like he's trying to work with you. You keep talking. You keep complaining that he's not working with you. You canceled September 2nd. On September 1st, you say, give me a call. He says, what for? Do you need to reschedule? You say, yes. That's you rescheduling. And then he says,
Okay, Your Honor, would you
okay,
look at
what
the
day
Zoom
would be
meeting?
better for you? Right, but do you see how that changed the entire character of your complaints? Your complaints are he's not working with me, he's delaying, but this is your rescheduling. Your complaints are they never did another logo, but then we see that there's a September 7th text and email where they did the logo with the fist. Because I specifically asked you in the beginning of this trial whether you ever saw a logo with fists, and your response to me was never. Now all of a sudden you saw it at a meeting. Okay, hopefully you did see it at a meeting.
Your Honor, I've also been reaching out to Brian, trying to follow up to let's move this along.
Okay.
I even showed up to a function that I knew he was at, and I was brushed off.
Okay.
So it's
How were you brushed off? How were you brushed off?
He told me he came outside. He said, "Come let me talk to you outside," because he thought I was gonna get eccentric inside. He said, "Come here." He said, "I promise you." He said, "I'm gonna call you. I'm gonna work this out. This, that, any other." And even now, Your Honor, this is so simple, but he is not being And the day I met with him, Your Honor, I told him, I said, Brian, I'm not good with technology. You're gonna have to hold me by the hand. No problem, Mr. Sin.
There's no technology problem here. There's zero technology problem. The only technology problem is you didn't read your emails. That's not a technology problem. Is this relationship just over? You don't want to work with each other and just like do something, Judge, and just let's move on from here? Or do you think that you can salvage this and work with each other?
Your Honor, I admire this young man. I didn't meet this young man in a Walmart parking lot or an alley. I met this young man fighting for Black kids in our community. He adopts kids. I spend my life building Black people up. And it was hard for me to do this to him.
Okay.
And so I admire what he does. but I had government money and I have a board I have to report to. And so
Why didn't you
I
answer
can
his
still-
email?
me,
Yeah.
because I'm old school, Your Honor. I see the email, I pick up my phone. I get upset with my kids because when I call them, they want to text me.
Yeah.
Or they tell me to text them. I don't do texts. Pick up that phone. And they say, Dad, I text you. You don't text me. Call me. You know, I wear glasses. I have blood pressure problem. Do you know my fingers are thumb? I got to sit. That's a lot of energy.
All right. Look, I want
I
to
love
know.
this guy, and if we can move forward, I don't have a problem. I don't hold your feelings.
I want so badly to have one case in my day, Mr. Bryan, where we can see something good happen. Can you do that for me? Can you figure out a way to work with him?
Absolutely, Your Honor. I do have respect for Mr. Sims, and I love and I believe in what he's doing, and I want to be a part of it in every way. Unfortunately, I got to be honest that I do have to have some sort of compensation from the payments that were missed.
Right.
But yes, I do want to continue to work.
So perhaps if your side, Mr. Bryan, could just schedule something he can bite off and chew, like what's your preferred method of communication through computers? Is it FaceTime or Zoom, Mr. Sims?
I can do Zoom.
You can do Zoom. So if he
Yeah, I
sends
had
you,
the pandemic required me to learn Zoom.
Right. Well, you know. All right. So if he sends you a Zoom link, you'll be able to click on it and have that meeting like soon, right? Right? We
Yeah.
can do that, right? Okay. And now I understand what he's saying. He has a counterclaim against you for the other payments that have all been missed. And I understand why you haven't paid him, but I'd like to resolve this as follows. On your claim against him, I'm going to dismiss your lawsuit with the ability for you to bring it up again if there is a problem in the future, but with the understanding that we're going to resolve things with a new format, and that is schedule the appointment with him on the phone. And then he picks a date, and then you can send him an email. That way you're covered. Anything that happens on the phone, cover yourself, Mr. Bryan, and send him an email saying, I am confirming that blah, blah, blah. If he doesn't respond to your email, that's on him.
Yes, Your Honor.
So that's how you cover yourself with an old schooler, okay? Then you have your meeting and you pick your logo and you move on with the other stuff. You need to understand, Mr. Sims, when you have a problem, you can't just keep sending texts and emails saying, call me. That's not how they roll, and they don't have to roll your way. Just because you're technologically not advanced doesn't mean they have to call you. Okay, so if you have a problem, spell out your problem in an email. That way there's a record of it. Do you understand that, Mr. Sims?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, now the payments that he's behind total what, $1,250?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, I am gonna order your recovery on your counterclaim of the $1,250 because the payment schedule is not contingent on progress. Some contracts will say, well, if there's progress, then you pay me. Other contracts say, this is how you're going to pay me, and I don't find the progress or lack thereof to be your fault, Mr. Bryan. I'm not finding it to be your fault, and therefore, and I'm not finding it to be anybody's fault because I don't have to. I would prefer to hug you two, kumbaya, and get you guys doing what you need to do out there. So I am going to order on the counterclaim that the $1,250 be paid for anything going forward. And that will bring him completely paid on this project. Correct, Mr. Bryan?
That's correct, Your Honor.
All right. So now he's a paying customer because he's going to pay that. So now we're going to get this thing done, right?
Absolutely.
And now, Mr. Sims, you're going to check your emails, right? And not constantly demand people call you, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, show me some love. I'm not seeing the love. That's my ruling, and I think it's going to work out for everybody. Good luck, gentlemen.
Boom, shakalaka.
Well, the judge has worked out an agreement here between these two parties. Let me talk to Mr. Sims. And Mr. Sims, you are going to go ahead and pay the defendant the $1,250, right? That makes you a paying customer on his schedule.
That's right. This man's got a lot of kids. He's a good man. I just need to get an understanding that I'm gonna get my website. It's not nothing personal. It's business.
All right, now Bryan, you satisfied
Yes.
with this?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And he said some really awfully nice things about you. You should feel very good.
I do. It's affirming, and I'm glad that we're able to work something out so that we can continue doing the good work.
All right. Well, good enough. Well, the judge worked hard to get this worked out, and good for her and good for you guys. All right. Congratulations. Thank you. And good luck to you guys. Okay. Harvey?
So, Doug, just real quick, when the judge talks about dismissing without prejudice, that means that you can refile the lawsuit if the facts warrant and you play it out the way the judge mentioned, but you still have to do it within the statute of limitations.
What are the 3 things you value the most in a person?
Ooh, well, you know the most important thing to me is a sense of humor, right from the get-go, because if you can't laugh at yourself and the other people around you and the things that are going on in this,
And your wife, if you can't laugh at your wife.
Yes, in this absurd life that we live. Yeah, I mean, what the hell good is it, right?
Yeah.
So that would be probably number 1 on the list. Number 2, I'm going to say loyalty and just being faithful to your friends and your family. What could be more important than that, right? Mm-hmm. And then number 3, I'll say humility.
Yeah.
Okay.
I could call
People
all
need
3
to,
that you were going to say.
We have to always remember that in the overall scheme of things in this crazy world, we're all kind of small. We're not quite as important as we all think we are. We like to think we are, and what about you?
Same.
You're gonna stick with that?
I don't think I can perfect on it. I'm just going to let that one go with your answers because I think that's
Well, thank God for sense of humor.
true.